Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this floating front tent card. It's a bit of a challenge considering it's a 2D video, but if I show you from the side perhaps you can see better. It's a tent card. It's got a little base to hold it flat, but then this bit rocks backwards and forwards, and when you stand it up it sort of sits floating in the middle. So without further delay, let me 2Dly show you how we made that. It uses a piece of cardstock and I'm using Balmy Blue, and it's 11 by 4 1/4 scored at 5.5. And you'll notice my handy dandy little keep it anchored. Here's one I made earlier, post-it notes, because on the front we are going to attach a piece of this lovely beautiful bouquet cardstock in the Balmy Blue. So what I did was I cut it down to be 4 by 5 1/4 and I attached it to the front, and I made sure there was adhesive everywhere because this piece, as you will have seen by the little post-it notes, gets cut out of the middle and it just leaves a window. So it's important that you have enough glue on this piece that it stays attached to the cardstock that you've cut out of the window. And you will also notice it's a little bit further up from the bottom than it is down from the top. That just allows for this little zigzag to hold it in place. You can make it just be a card like this, but sometimes they tend to just fall down, and I thought if there was the little zigzag in the middle it would help keep it anchored. So I pop that off to one side because we don't need that right now. What we do need is the paper trimmer, and I'm going to bring in the piece to make the anchor, and this is 4 1/4, so it fits across the width, by 3. Oh, that's actually not 3.5. Let me just cut that down to be 3.5. 4 1/4 by 3.5. As always, of course, all the directions and dimensions and any pertinent information will be on my blog, so you don't have to, panic to jot them all down. I have to go through the video several times. You can just sit back and relax and watch it all happen, and then pop over to my blog and find all the dimensions. So we are going to do some scoring. So I'm going to tuck the cutting blade well out of the way, and I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch, and then at 1 1/8, and then at 1 3/4, and then at 2 3/8. I'm just lining these up on the paper trimmer as we go along, and then the final one is at 3, which leaves 1/2 inch on the far side. So we only needed about 1/2 inch to attach it, but all these little valley and mountain falls are actually 5/8 each. So I will bring in my bone folder to give these a nice sharp crease, and I'm actually going to do one of my little, change it as that wasn't very smart, Alison. Change it as we go along, please. So these will actually all fold zigzag back in and on themselves. So it doesn't matter which direction you start, as long as they've got creases in both directions. Now when I made this one, I put the edge facing down, and it fits. As you can see, there's plenty clearance, but I just thought when I came to close it, oops, because the 5/8, they stick out a little bit further. I did test it in an envelope and it does fit, so it's not a problem, but I just thought it would look nicer and perhaps a little bit neater if it was done the other way around. So I'm going to attach this with glue because it needs to be a pretty firm attachment. So you can either use the tear and tape, or you can use the mono liquid adhesive. And for this one, I'm just going to use liquid glue. Whoops. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I usually recommend that you use your silicone mat so you don't get sticky on your work surface. So I lie it down and line this up with the bottom this time. Fold. And then we'll close it closed, and now these are going equal with the bottom of the card, and I will put just a little bit of adhesive on that side. And the best way to make sure that you have it closed in the right position is to close the card onto it. And then we can just hold that for a few seconds while the glue sets. And in the meantime, we'll do a little bit of the stamping. So I have just a piece of white cardstock. It doesn't matter the size particularly, but what we're going to use is the wonderful Sunrise Sailing and the Sunrise Sailing dies. In particular, the ship, the sailing ship, and one of the little clouds. Now there is also an embossing folder that comes with it, but I'm not using that today. So I'm going to bring in Misty Moonlight ink, and I'm going to stamp the sailing ship onto the piece of basic white cardstock and give it, oops, give it a good press. And then what I thought I would do, the set actually comes with these lovely detailed sections, and I tried stamping it in the Misty Moonlight, and it was very interesting. It gave it like a lovely denim sort of color. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? But I didn't feel it match the theme of the Balmy Blue, so I'm going to stamp Balmy Blue for the inside details. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually even going to stamp it off, so it just has a slight refrain. So this is the piece, this is the stamp that puts the detail onto the sail. So I'm going to stamp it off on a piece of cardstock and stamp it second generation, so you just get that really light look to it. And then the base of the sailing section, I'm going to do the same. So I'm just going to stamp it off, and it just gives, you'll see, it just gives it a little bit of extra rather than being plain and base and white. And while I'm busy with the stamping, of course the Balmy Blue, because we don't need that one anymore. Oh, I've just found the samples that I made. This was full strength Balmy Blue, and this was when I'd stamped off the Misty Moonlight. So this has got a bit of a denimish look. This I felt was a little strong, and that's why I went with the stamped off Balmy Blue. But I cut a little banner out of Stylish Shapes, and I'm going to use the Best Wishes stamp that comes in the Sailboat set, and stamp that onto there while I'm busy with the inks out. There will be one more little stamp to do for the seagulls behind the boat, but that's it for now. And then what we'll do is we will take the sailboat die and run it through the die cutting machine with the whole, ta-da, here's one I made earlier. And then what I also did was I took the cloud, and using a piece of basic white, here's one I made earlier, that too. Oh, and just for the record, the window that I cut, I used the rectangle dies. You can of course just use your paper trimmer if you want to, so you can gauge the size. It depends, I suppose, on the size of the window that you want. Mine fitted nicely into this rectangle because the ship was sort of a tall sailing ship. But those are the pieces And then here's the piece that's going to go on the inside. Now this one is attached behind, I don't know if you can see down in there, using a piece of balmy blue cardstock. And while it's nice, it's a little bit firm. So what I thought I would do was, instead of using balmy blue, I would just use a piece of white computer paper. You could use a scrap of designer series paper if you wanted, but this is 2 inches by 2 inch square, and I scored it at 1 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the back. Put glue on one side and attach it to the back of the floating piece right up at the top. And it doesn't matter that it's computer paper or anything, because it doesn't get seen. It's behind the floating panel. So that's that piece. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to put glue on this side. Does need to be attached firmly because it will be hanging and swinging. So I'll put the lid on the glue, and then the way to get this in is to just close the card and pop this piece back into its window. And the nice thing about the glue is it's a little bit forgiving, and it gives you a second or two to make your mind up where you want it to be. So now that's going to, that's just going to dry. And what we can do is decorate the front. So the sailing ship is going to go on here. The cloud I'm going to just pop in the corner. I'm not going to use dimensionals because of course you'll realize that the base is quite thick. It's not too thick that it won't go through the post office measurer. If they measure the thickness of your card, it will actually pass muster. But I'm going to stick this, but it's not going to need any adhesive here. So I'm just going to put it round the top edges. Oops. So just 3 little bits of adhesive to keep that cloud up in the top corner. And then the greeting I'm just going to attach to the bottom, and it'll need to be attached flat because you can't push your ultimate lock. There would be no reason to have dimensionals there when it sticks out so far, just for mailing purposes. And then I am going to bring in the little seagull stamp and bring back in the Misty Moonlight. I'm going to lay the ship where it's more or less going to be, and then I'll know where I can put my little seagull guys. So we can have 3 flying around the top of the ship. And then all we need to do is attach these with some dimensionals. Now I've got some long pieces, which I think came out of a past paper pumpkin kit. Just need to bring in my snips. And I'm going to cut a piece long enough to go along the bottom of the ship. And then this piece can go really skinny up into the top of the sail mast. And then I'm just going to use regular dimensionals to fill in on the other places. So we'll pop those off to one side, all of my scraps, to make a neat working surface. So I'm just going to peel the backing pieces off the dimensionals. And then pop this back down, and then we can see where this can go nicely back between the seagulls that we stamped. And there you have it, a second card. But I do feel that it's really hard to show in a 2D video. Putting this piece on just a piece of lighter paper like designer series paper or computer paper, it just floats a bit better than the other side. But aesthetically from the front, they both look the same. Like I say, this one was a boo-boo and I had attached it, not the wrong way, a different way. I had attached it differently, but it does still fit into the envelope. And I think they make really rather nice cards. And you know, when it stands up, it's not going to fall apart and spread out and then lose the effectiveness of it being able to swing. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. I thank you in advance if you think I'm worthy of a thumbs up. All the directions and dimensions, as I said, will be on my blog as always. If you have a question or a comment, pop those in the box below because I'll always get back with you. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching.